Welcome to the 4 Habits podcast, where we help you build relationships that thrive at home, at work, and in life. We're Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, and every week we bring you actionable insights to create meaningful connections and lasting success. So let's dive in.
So today we're going to have another radical conversation with that 4-letter word in the workplace, L-O-V-E, and how it is the foundation for success and actually creates profits. And with us in the seat today, we have Kelly Winegarden Hall. Welcome, Kelly, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
Oh, we're so looking forward to this conversation because I think we're turning all that we know about business and leadership on its head. But before we get into the meat of it, we have to give you your proper introduction. So Jon's going to share your bio with the audience.
Always my privilege to do this bit. Great. So Kelly Winegarden Hall is a seasoned executive, leadership strategist, and author of Love Works, Transforming the Workplace with Purpose and Authenticity. And there we go. Copy of the book right there for you to see, for those on camera. So with over 30 years of experience leading diverse, high-performing teams, Kelly has built a career on proving that the most successful companies are those that prioritize people. As the founder of L.A.R.G.E, Kelly now equips leaders to foster workplace cultures rooted in human connection, not fear-based efficiency. Her message is both bold and timely. Love, yes, that 4-letter word, may be the most disruptive force in business today. Through her writing, keynotes, and consulting, she offers a practical roadmap for cultivating thriving teams, energizing disengaged employees, and leading with authenticity in an age of uncertainty. In everything she does, Kelly champions the truth that relationships at work and beyond are what drive real performance and long-term success. Somebody very much on our page. But Kelly, I mean, really, love and work. I know it is that 4-letter word. What's your experience been over the last 20 plus years you've been working in this space here? Do people actually get that love fits in a work setting, or do they think, no, that's too soft?
Yeah. Or is it changing?
Completely. I've been told not to use the word love at work and in presentations on multiple occasions, which is probably why I feel the call to use it more than ever. And I do recognize that there is a cultural sensitivity to the word love. It means a lot of different things in a lot of different cultures. And yet I've come to believe that love is the nature of our existence. You know, if you have a breath and a heartbeat, it's kind of hard to explain exactly where that comes from and how we're powered to walk through the world for 100 years on food and water, you know, so that unexplained life force to me is love. And I think that a life well lived is represented by the quality of our relationships. And that has to extend to our work for people to be at the peak of their power.
You are so speaking our language, because that's exactly the message that we're preaching, is that the quality of your life really comes down to the quality of your relationships. Are you noticing a shift though? Because in the past, I guess we've been more hard-nosed and numbers driven and all about profits and cost reduction. There wasn't much space in the business lexicon for anything to do with love or human connection or empathy. Maybe post-COVID, that's amplified a way in. What are you seeing?
Well, there's been a nice movement for 20 or 30 years where you see a lot of leaders like Ricardo Semler or Ray Dalio and other people really combining sharp strategy and clear missions with attention to how the work gets done and how people are treated and who's doing what. And so I feel like there's been an evolving trend for quite some time to shift our relationship with power and hierarchy and things. But it takes a lot of courage to actually do it, to let go of the stories that we've been holding about. You can't bring your emotions to work. You have to be stoic and cool as a cucumber. You have to be positive all the time. You're always striving for perfection, and the numbers and hitting the numbers matter more than anything else. Well, I actually disagree. Because I think that you foster a heck of a lot of fear and anxiety and pain and frustration when people are trying to fit into these molds that aren't our nature and aren't our spirit at all. And when you see the power of psychologically safe spaces where diverse teams get to be themselves and they get to be forceful and they get to be quiet and they get to be engaged, the result in innovation and in taking risks and in learning quickly are abundantly clear, that it's way more powerful for leaders to activate the energy of everyone around them than to be the energy serving everyone around them.
Oh, I like that. Say that again. To activate the energy of everyone around than to be the energy. Do you want to unpack that some more?
Sure. Like if you think about a typical organizational structure that looks like a pyramid, where the organization shows you every day that they believe those 3 or 5 or 10 people at the top know the most, like they have the intuition and instincts that they trust, and everyone else is just there to receive delegation and to have work packages and to finish things. The quality of the total energy of that system, where all of that power and knowledge is only respected at the top, is contrasted to an organization that looks a little bit more like a circle, where everyone is bringing their talents and their time and their gifts to the table. And the leaders who sit in the center of that see their work as empowering and enrolling the network around them. The power of that circle is so much more robust and so much richer for everyone in it than the circle that says some of us are big and some of us are little.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is not a political show by any stretch. But some might say in the current environment, certainly coming out of the US, out of other countries in the world, we're moving away from that circle and back to the pyramid, some might suggest, in terms of the strong leader, the focus on the results, the perhaps lack of space for the four-letter word, the love word. It's not the sense that we're getting is
Or empathy and
connection. The sense that we're getting is the world is kind of in a different phase at the moment. What are you seeing from the organizations you're speaking with? I mean, you're in the US, we're not. What are you seeing? What are you seeing on the ground in that regard?
Well, I think we're seeing a little bit of everything. We're seeing like companies who are very quickly getting out of their DEI programs and adopting the rhetoric of the current administration. And that's extremely sad. But that's also doubled by people who are watching the companies making those decisions and saying, I'm not doing business with you anymore. You don't share my values.
That's
And
right.
so I sort of believe in the universe and the divine spirit in my own life. And I think it's no mistake that my book was released on March 4th of this year. It's at a time when the global and international US national scene, all of these political environments couldn't be more vulnerable and corrupt and ever changing and just volatile in every way. And for me, that's the exact time that corporations need to step up to take care of the communities that they have their factories and offices in, and to pay more attention to the people showing up for work. Because when adults are spending more of their healthy adult years at work than any other place, and the world around them is going crazy, we got to try twice as hard to make sure that the workplace is capturing their spirit and activating their gifts, and a place where they want to show up on Monday morning to create value and leave the communities we're in better than we find them.
You know, that's such a powerful statement. And that thought of creating value in a world that is constantly changing with so much uncertainty. Nobody has the answers anymore, right? You do need these creative hearts and minds willingly coming to problem solve together and to innovate. What is your key message to leaders then to be able to, I guess, make this mindset shift, make this shift from leadership in the way they've understood it in the past to leadership being love, unlocking the energy in the room rather than having to pump people up and give them directions on the right thing to do? How can we help leaders change mindsets?
Well, I think one of the most powerful things leaders can do is to make a commitment to themselves and the people around them that to the best of their ability, things will happen with you and not to you. Because just that commitment to setting plans, creating projects, setting deadlines, setting goals, when you actually see the other adults around you that are trading their time for money in your firm, and you realize they're full of talent and they're full of ideas and they're full of instincts, if you can say, I am going to make decisions about the business with you, then you start involving them in more and more dialogue about how things are going. Are you with me? Did I miss something? Are there opportunities and possibilities that I haven't considered on my own? And the more and more that you start practicing the art of trading places, before I set a policy to change a benefit or to adopt 100% in-office work or 100% remote work or whatever it's going to be, how about if I either put myself out there to trade places and say, would I like this if this was happening to me? Or to take the bigger step to go ask. I'm thinking about shifting the policy on remote work. How's that going to affect you? How is that going to affect your household? How's that going to affect your job satisfaction? Is it necessary? And I really think the leaders who take a minute to care about how their decisions are affecting the people around them and listen, the better policies are. And we really need to get back to having better dialogue, pausing to consider the possibilities and then choosing what's best for everyone instead of what's best for a few. And that happens easily in cultures where the leaders are loving and caring about the satisfaction and the engagement of their employees who are serving their customers.
And I'm sure that's, absolutely spot on. And with that, I'm sure you're getting this double tension that leaders are having to manage, where they feel the pressure of having to deliver, having to move at the speed of thought to get things done. And love and connection and empathy and listening to people takes so much time. How do you help them navigate that?
I help them to see the payoff of pausing to plan the work before you work the plan. I mean, yes, we all want to run and we all want to go, but I mean, every time that we take a pause, a lot of leaders hate the word pause because it feels like you're stopping and it feels like you're slowing. But for leaders who take a minute to pause on a frequent basis, to look around and say, are you all with me? Am I missing something? Do I even see everything in the external environment that I need to know to make good decisions? The more and more that we understand the power of a pause, the better that activation and enrollment and engagement goes. And I can give an example of that. When I was working with the team in the Netherlands, we had a self-directed structure. And that meant I had to challenge every way I used to make decisions to figure out the better way to do it through the group. And one of them was hiring. In the past, it was pretty common for hiring managers to work with HR and draft a job requisition, get it approved, go out and find candidates, and then make a decision and tell the team, ta-da, here's this new person that you're going to work with. I picked them. And we sort of flip that on the head to say that teams need to hire their teammates. They know how to assess the jobs, the skills, the gaps in the team, what's required for the next phase. And so we created a 6-week process where we would identify 16 candidates, half men and half women. And then we would have different groups of people working over a 6-week process so that everybody who was ever going to work with that person had the chance to meet them. Not ever, but the core team was going to meet them. And then by the time that we got through the 6 rounds of the process, we all knew the candidates quite well. The candidates knew who they were going to work side by side with, and they knew about the culture and they knew what they were getting themselves into. And then when that person, the final candidate, came on board, they knew a lot about the job. They knew who they'd be working side by side with. And the team is way more invested in that person's onboarding and their success because they chose them.
Yeah,
they're responsible for that.
Yeah.
And that hiring process and the quality of the candidates we ended up with and the quality of the integration that happened so fast when everyone knew what they were getting into was amazingly powerful. And I just think that these are little shifts that you make where you commit to taking a little more time up front, but you can count on much higher quality on the other side.
Well, I was going to say, you say A little time up front. That sounds like a lot of time up front. I'm sure you get a lot of pushback from busy executives saying, "How can we spend this much time on hiring the people? We got our day jobs to do. We got to get out there and do the work." What examples, I guess, do you have of the benefits of that, taking the time to make that investment? How do you make that case to these executives? Is there an ROI that you need to show them, or what do they need to hear to see to say, actually, you know what, we need to spend that time making this investment?
Oh, it's much easier to see. Two important statistics that I can definitely refer to over and over in my career are retention. The talent that stays is the talent that appreciates that their voice is heard. They work from their free will. They do what they said they were going to do. You can hold them responsible for outcomes, not hours, because they do what they say they're going to do again and again. So hiring the right people is a payoff every time. And then high performing teams will hit deadlines that they set for themselves again and again and again. The empowered teams who have self-selected into how they like to work, and then they have the support from leaders, coaches, to fix the bad days, to fail fast, and to fix things quickly. It takes a psychologically safe space and a very well-crafted team and highly engaged leaders to reset and course correct to keep everything on track.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely show the number of milestones that are hit, the priorities that are shared by the team, and the retention of teams. So you don't have all the costs of high turnover and staffing and empty jobs that stress everyone out because now they're doing 2 or 3 people's work when there's lots of turnover. The stability in teams that are treated right, that have high trust and that fix failures fast is remarkably different than people who either get through the day, they do their best, they try hard to hit goals other people set for them. I'm sorry, but the highly empowered, highly structured, plan the work the plan cadence is way more powerful.
Yeah, indeed. And you used a word that I'd like to just bring back and have you expand on it. You talked about adults in the workplace, and when you have an adult there, and we've heard it said that offices are really grown up babysitting because of the way that
Sadly,
we've treated them in the past. Tell us more. You've been very deliberate with using adults, so tell us more
I
about that
have.
mindset.
I have used that word over and over because I do experience big people and little people, or powerful people with V's and C's in their titles, all the vice presidents and all of the general managers and all the CEOs and all the chiefs of something tend to have this idea that their thoughts and their time and their words are more powerful and more important than other people. And I will make the claim that every person that's available in the workforce who has studied, who is committing their time and energy, has got gifts. They've got gifts to be used and shared and leveraged. And if I think COVID has shown us that we can trust the adults to do what they said they would do, no matter where they're sitting and who they are. And so I'm just a really big proponent for helping even workers understand that they are talented adults who get to choose things for themselves and they get to be a part of processes. We kind of took that to an extreme in Niaga with the commitment to radical transparency and fierce inclusion. And so we would have meetings that in my past would have been 3 or 4 people behind a closed door making decisions about targets or performance evaluations. And we brought them online so that we had those meetings out loud and anyone could call in and listen to a business review. Anyone
Wow.
could call in and listen to a debate. And they weren't necessarily on camera. They could leave their comments in the chat. But everyone, there were no conversations that were off limits to the group because we respected that they were adults. And one of my favorite stories about the difference was we had a teammate. We had some younger teammates and they who were former like lab technicians, and they had always just had work packages and gotten their stuff done in the lab and really never left the lab or their desk. They did all of their work in a really confined space. And when we started getting together in Yaga, I invited everybody on the team to come to workshops a couple times a year. because I knew that if they had the context they were working in, their work would be better.
Yep.
It wasn't just do this task. It's here's why we're asking you to do this and what it means in our business priorities and in our business strategy. And I remember a lot of people who'd never been asked for an opinion before were like, why do you want to talk to me? But the truth is, you're an educated person who looks at this stuff every day, and I'm sure you have an opinion about it. And so it took a while to encourage everyone to use their voices and to find their voices and to have an opinion. Because, you know, if you have a bunch of introverts and extroverts, the extroverts are going to tell you everything and talk over the introverts until they
Indeed.
don't. And we just found ways to make sure everybody's voices were heard, everybody contributed. And the funny thing is, over time, as people got more and more comfortable that their voice was heard and that their contributions were considered, and that if they dissented against a policy, someone had to overcome that dissent, you started watching them, they're sort of spread their wings and take more chances and contribute with new perspectives. And all of them were treated as adults. They were treated as equal because they had 24 hours a day, just like me. And it was just beautiful to watch people spread their wings. A similar story was about one of our leaders who had been leading people for 35 years. And when I started saying these things like, we're all going to be the same, we're not going to have bosses, we're all going to treat each other like adults, this person came to me and she said, I just don't think I can dumb it down anymore. You know, I just don't think I can dumb it down. I'm so uncomfortable because I've just been a leader for so long. And I was like, this isn't about dumbing yourself down. You're a
Exactly.
great people leader. This is about you using all those skills in a team to help other people spread their wings as a peer, not because you have power over them, but because you care and you
Yes.
see their potential and you want to put your hand on their back, not because you're higher than them, but because you have that gift to share.
That's such a shift in mindset and values and beliefs and definition of what does it mean to lead. And what you're describing, we had another beautiful conversation earlier on, which is about the leader or the leader's responsibility is to ensure human flourishing, to ensure that others around them can flourish. And I just love the direction of travel with all these conversations about leadership, and wonder what the lag time will be for companies to really embrace this. What do you think is like the number one obstacle that we need to be courageous about addressing now to have more love and more flourishing?
I think the number one monster that has created a bunch of the pain today is executive compensation practices. Because, you know,
Wow,
in
you
the
went there.
80s, yeah, I mean, in the 80s when we started tying executive compensation to economic value added and total shareholder returns, and there's so much money on the table for 5 or 10 executives to whose compensation is tied to the share price, the change in the share price. Well, if you tie that much compensation to the share price, it starts deviating from the responsibility to care for your employees and to provide for your customers. Happy investors should follow happy employees and happy customers delivering sustainable returns. But if you're an executive who has to satisfy your investors to keep your job, or even perceive that story, even if it's not true, then when times start getting a little volatile and crazy like they are now, you're celebrated as a hero for making the tough decisions to restructure and to affect 1,000 families and to close a plant or send production to a lower cost country. And so we're watching one leader after another get celebrated for these big decisions that decimate their loyal workforce and that dramatically hurt the communities they live in and don't leave much for the investors of the future, when we're actually removing the power of the people by creating so much uncertainty for everyone who's left. And I really feel like if we held people accountable for what we do want, of course we want great results, but we also want healthy communities, and we also want educated children, and we also want flourishing households. And we also want people to be living with a lot less dis-ease and a lot less stress and a lot less pain. And I would like to hold executives responsible for satisfaction, employee satisfaction, employee engagement, customer satisfaction, customer engagement, and investor returns. Let's get back to a balanced scorecard where you're evaluated on how well you're leading and how well you're improving the communities you're serving.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, you've made a very clear case for what needs to be done, and indeed why it needs to be done, the returns, the business case, etc. How do they do it? Is that where your Live Large framework comes in? How do they actually do this stuff in practice?
Yeah, well, Live Large, large stands for love, abundance, respect, gratitude, and equality. And I'm actually a proponent of abundance. I think abundance is how you have the capacity to share your time and energy with others. You know, when your basic needs are met and you're overflowing with abundance, it's very easy to share your time, your energy, your compassion, your kindness, your resources. And so I really want people to lean into their abundance, the abundance of time, the abundance of resources, the abundance of ideas, the abundance of creation. And so living large is about living without dis-ease, living at ease, and sharing your gifts and celebrating the things that are going right around you. What that takes is often a really honest discussion on the current state. If satisfaction is 77 or 78%, way too many companies are saying that's world class, that's upper quartile to have 77% satisfaction. Are you telling me you think it's world class for 1 out of 4 people to be dissatisfied inside of a company? Like, that's ridiculous. Let's go for 95%. Let's really figure out what it takes for most people to flourish, for average people to be wildly successful. And so I think when you really get honest about the current state, is there high trust? Is there a lot of drama? Is the customer in the room? Are things happening with people or are they happening to people? And when somebody is crossing a line by just being themselves, how do you recover and repair? And so these are the types of things I want people to be very honest about in the beginning, and finding their voices and even finding all of their emotions, because we're so locked into this, let's be perfect and let's be positive, and you can be positive no matter what. Guess what? That's not honest at all.
Indeed.
I've lately found like it's bullshit, sorry, that people are happy all the time. The truth is our emotions serve us. And I think the more and more that leaders can be more comfortable with all of the emotions that are available to us and using them, we can have much more engaged customers, much more engaged colleagues, because I will treasure the person who cares so much that they get angry and they shout and they scream. And if they stepped on someone's toes or made someone mad, I can teach them how to restore that trust and to say they're sorry and to fix it. But I would way rather have those points on the table than have everybody tiptoeing around each other trying to get everything just right.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And this whole world of emotions, we know that every conversation is laden with emotions, but we don't have the language for bringing emotions into the room in a corporate setting. One of the things that we said in our book as well, when we wrote about how can you apply the 4 habits and relational intelligence into the workplace, is that we need to get as good at talking about and measuring what used to be called the softer skills. And I love the way you say they're not soft skills, they're foundational to success. But how do we measure it in performance reviews, in the way people are rewarded in their pay package? How do we, because what gets measured will get done. So how do we intentionally make space for the emotional side of things, build emotional intelligence, encourage people to be honest with their emotions in a regulated way, in a respectful way, but be honest about it and bring the emotional side into the conversation as well, because that's what unlocks hearts and minds, isn't it? They say if you suppress any emotion, you've suppressed all your emotions, and then you just lack the passion. Anyway, you can tell there's so much that resonates. I could go on and on and
Yeah.
on about that.
Well, we're on the same page with that. And I think that, I agree with the Covey organization, the speed of trust, and saying it's probably the number one leadership competency in the 21st century to master trust. And that means getting rid of these paradigms of, oh gosh, like if you have a trust fall, it's like a house burning down, and you might rebuild that house over 18 months, but it's never quite the same. I mean, haven't we all heard this about trust? Like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world if you don't trust somebody. That's totally not true. In fact, we're always going to have little rubs in our relationships if everyone is being themselves, because we're all trained to handle conflict and chaos with all kinds of different ways. And on any given day, if there's a problem, some people are going to fight, some people are going to hide, some people are going to run. Like, it's just predictable, very
Yeah.
predictable. But if you kind of know that everybody reacts to change in their own ways, and you can hold the space to let it be a little crazy, then oftentimes when you get to the work of rebuilding and restoring trust and sorting out all those little things that were chaotic, you learn so much. It improves relationships, and then you're glad the crazy thing happened, and it never happened at all, because you improve your relationships when you work through things effectively.
Of course, it makes you more honest, and you talk about the thing that's causing a problem instead of sweeping it under the carpet. I'm conscious of time. There is so much that we could just keep listening to you about.
But
You have
I
a
want to
question?
I want to pick up on an area that we started talking about before we went live and started recording here. But I wanted to talk about what can happen when you have cultures coming together, because you mentioned some of the work that
Yes,
you've done
good point.
where you have
Founder-led.
founder-led businesses, and I think where the founder is now taken over by a private equity firm. The founder is now gone, but there's a culture there, and they're now trying to merge with a new culture. What can happen in those situations where you have two different cultures coming together? What do you advise? How do you get them to work together? Is it a case of leaving the two cultures separate, or is it a case of trying to blend them? What have you found works best, and where do you get best results?
Oh, I think a few things that have been helpful with every turnaround situation I've walked into are listening to what's actually being felt by the
Hmm.
people that are involved, because people start making a lot of assumptions about each other. They start assuming that some people don't get it, or they don't understand, or they're resisting something that should be wonderful. And you start out with just all these really high emotions where people are making tons of assumptions about each other, but they're not connected or listening or sharing at all. And so I'll often start out with some basic questions for people about how is there trust? Has trust fallen? Are you experiencing drama? And I like to use one of my favorite books is The Empowerment Dynamic by David Emerald. And it kind of talks about the human nature to experience the dreaded drama triangle. And we can all put ourselves in the situation of having a bully or a perpetrator, and then being a victim, and then a rescuer. And I give people stickers, of their inner child and their superhero and their current self. And I'll say, have you ever been any one of these things? Have you ever been a perpetrator, a bully, ever been accused of being a bully? Have you ever felt like a victim or really crushed by someone else? And have you ever been the rescuer that tries to save people and make it better and soothe them, but then it creates drama with the other person? Yes, 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 we've all had the drama. And then this book like flips it to say, we don't ever have to have drama. We can understand that bully perpetrator is just a challenger, and we all get challenged. Just let them be a challenger. And then instead of being a rescuer, be a coach. A coach can still empathize with you when you've had a bad day, when you feel attacked, or when you don't like somebody. But they don't go in the rabbit hole with you. Oh, yeah, that person is a monster. They go, I'm sorry you feel that way. How could I help you out of this situation? Like, how can I help you get what you really want, to restore that situation, to fix it, to improve it, to let it go, to let them? And if you reframe those roles to a creator, a challenger, and a coach, anyone can create a good outcome from a bad situation. Anything. It's just a mindset shift from being stuck in the drama and the pain of it all to finding your voice. And when people start feeling more comfortable that they'd rather be a creator than a victim, then I bring in tools like nonviolent communication to say, okay, now you're ready to create something. Let's create it from a place of authenticity. Let's
Yeah.
use your honest feelings about what sucks right now and not cheer, oh, it's okay, it's a good enough. No, it's not good enough. You wouldn't be in pain
Yeah.
if you weren't. We get to be
Best.
honest about the
Yeah.
things that are really uncomfortable right now because we can't fix what we can't see.
Yeah.
And so I'll usually really use those kind of tools. Like we talk about trust and drama and how to make your case to ask for what you really want and need. And then getting both parties to do that for each other is really effective. So
that's so powerful, even that little line, ask for what you really want or need, because quite often we tend to act it out if we feel that we can't say it or it's too vulnerable for us to admit it. We act it out instead of talk about it. And communication just doesn't happen in the way it's supposed to. What thoughts would you like to leave the audience with in a way to kind of encourage and inspire them to make this mental shift, to make this shift in behaviors, to think more of employees as adults who choose to work with you and to bring their gifts? What are the thoughts that you'd like to leave with the audience?
Okay. One of my biggest requests of all of the leader out there is to stop using the D word, and that is delegate. I would really like to cancel the word delegate because delegation automatically assumes subordination. I'm giving you this work and you need to do the work, and replace delegate with enroll, because enrollment says, hey, we have this project that we need someone to lead. And this is the nature of the project. This is the impact it's expected to have on the business. And I think you are the perfect person to do it. Are you interested in doing it? Do you see the value in it? Do you have time? Will this fit with your other priorities? What would it take to make this work? And when you ask someone for their help and you enroll them in the what's in it for them and what's in it for the company, a lot of people will say yes of their own free will. I want to do that. It would be a pleasure to do that. But when they say no or they pause, you get to say, ooh, why? Tell me more. You might find out I just accepted a different project yesterday, or I'm already overwhelmed and working 80 hours a week, or I just found out last week that my dad has prostate cancer and I'm going to need to spend more time with my family for the near future. Or, I've got a kid who has I've got a drug addiction and I'm really torn at spending more time at work right now. Like if you're creating this process of enrolling the other adults in the work that needs to be done, if people can say yes, they will. But if they say no or they pause, you get to understand why and support them in having their whole life, because they might be the right person next time, but it's not right now. And I just really think that getting rid of delegation and getting rid of that power play of subordinating people with tasks and work packages and asking people for help, enrolling them in what needs to be done and rewarding them for hitting the deadlines and the milestones along the way and checking in on how it's going while they're in process, the payoff is there every time.
Wow, you're making some radical shifts, spinning the whole concept of leadership on the head. That will be a challenge for some people, because if power or identity and all those things are wrapped up in who you think a leader should be, and suddenly you don't delegate, you enroll and ask people, if it really boggles the mind, I suppose, for some. What assurances can you give to people who hear that and think, oh, I'm losing control, or I'm
I've gone
losing
soft.
power?
I've gone soft. What happened to me?
Well, for most of those people, it's kind of easy to say, how do you like to be treated? Because I don't know very many leaders who don't have someone they're accountable to, whether it's their husband or their wife or their board. Everybody still has a boss above them most of the time, all the way up to our source, I think. all of us feel a little subordination somewhere in our life. And I think if you ask anybody, do you like it when things happen with you or to you? Everybody prefers when things happen with them. Everybody.
Indeed.
It's just like once you get to a certain level of power, if that's what you've been raised in, you feel like it's your job to tell other people what to do. It's part of what you've earned. It's part of your responsibility. And that's the thing that has to shift, because what we really end up with is hurt people who hurt people.
Indeed.
Like if you've been hurt by the power and then you get in power and now it's your job to do the hurting, time out. Because it doesn't have to stay that way. Fraternities don't have to keep hazing people. Companies don't have to keep punishing people. We need to hold people accountable for what we do want and rewarding them for doing those things well, not putting everyone's energy around what we don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So much food for thought in that, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, for sharing the work that you've been doing and the examples, the proof that loving better in the workplace leads to better profits. And definitely in the world of uncertainty that we live in now, engaging people in a way that they can bring their adult self and all their gifts and all their ideas and innovations and feel safe to share those and problem solve together. That's what we need in a world where we don't know what the news tomorrow will bring. So really, really thank you for that. Hold up the book again. I'm going to get it. Yeah. One of the things of doing these podcasts that John panics about is
We've got
that I
books
end up
coming through the door all the time.
buying all the books. But
well, what I'll say, the promise that I'll make to you guys and to all of the folks that are following you and your podcast is, when you get this right, like when you bring your loving leadership to work, you'll reach that day towards the end of your life when you look back and say, what is the proof that I was here and what do I have to take with me? And the truth is, when we do this right, we collect friends for life around the world through our work. The people we work side by side with, the people we work for, the customers we serve, end up being some of the most treasured relationships in your life when you let them. And so I really feel that that is the name of the game here on Earth as humans, is the quality of our life is measured by the quality of our relationships. And it should be good at work, just like it should be good at home and in your communities too.
We can't add anything to that.
Exactly. Well, I'm thinking of so many leaders around the world who could do with a copy of that book right now. With all the stuff happening in the world.
Please recommend it.
No, I tell you what.
Absolutely will. Absolutely will. Well, it's been a joy. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us for this conversation. And I was
going to say, how do people find out about you if they want to connect with you, find out about you? What's the best thing? We'll put stuff in the show notes, but just for those listening in.
I'm on LinkedIn, and I also have a website at www.kellywinegardenhall.com. And that has all of my contact information. And if anybody wants a signed copy of my book, they can send me a note through LinkedIn. And when I send the signed copies, I send a little card that promises a free drink with me. That can be a coffee or a cocktail on Zoom or in person. But I like to talk about these topics and see other people's stories that even enhance my own. So if you buy a copy from me directly signed, I will send it to you with a promise of a free drink.
Well, next time you're in London, we definitely have to take you up on that one. But
sounds great.
From us, it's been amazing. Really appreciate you joining us for the conversation. And I think we can call it a wrap.
I think it's a wrap. Thank you so much, Kelly. It's been great. And to our audience around the world, we say thanks for joining us yet again. Love. Get out there, but make love happen in your workplace, in your setting. The ROI is there, even in hard number terms. The ROI is there
for sure.
But great, thanks for being with us again, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the 4 Habits podcast. Now, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, take our free relationship skills quiz at the4habits.com/skills quiz to start improving your relationships today. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.